Welcome back to the podcast. We've got Alan Lazarus with us from the Next Level University. He's really going to show you great life transitions and stuff. We'd love to talk about self-improvement, and we're really going to dive into what it means to be fulfilled, right? Both internally and externally. This can promise to be a great show. Hang on and really get into this one. You'll love it. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to start with gratitude and end with gratitude. Also, Future Factory. I'm very future oriented. I always have been. Tough beginning. Past was painful. Present was painful, but I always had that bigger, better, brighter future that I was shooting towards. I still do. And I think the opposite of nihilism is really having hope for a bigger, better, brighter future. And I think that nihilism is where we get stuck and we get hopeless and helpless. And I think that if you believe in a bigger, better, brighter future, you'll invest in it. And it becomes this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that's fulfilling. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you for having me.
Love it. You know, the idea of going big and bold in a future that pulls us into it, right? A future that is, exciting, something that really brings us there instead of this world where we're pushed from our past, the pain, the history, all of that stuff. There's kind of that pain that pushes us or a future that pulls us. And I know you've got some great stuff to get into. I think you framed some things that I liked in our pre-show, talking a little bit about, internal, external success.
Yeah. So I'll tell my story briefly here. So I'm going to be 36 in November. And so this is Alan version 3.6. And so when I was younger, I didn't really understand a lot of this. It's kind of like when you watch a movie as a kid and then you see it again as an adult. Now you kind of get it. It's been like that, sort of rewatching the movie of my own life. So I have these things called the 4 buckets. And the first bucket, we go through all 4. We all want to get to the 4th bucket. I'll explain as I sort of tell my story here. So started off very rough. Father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. My mom was 31. My sister was 6 and I was 2. My real last name is actually McCorkle. John McCorkle was my father. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. Big Irish Catholic family. Yep. And I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. His name was Steve Lazarus. So a lot of Greek people, it's a very Greek last name. They look at me and they go, Lazarus? Blonde hair, blue eye, very little hair. Doesn't make any sense. So Lazarus is not my real last name. Steve Lazarus was in my life from age 3 to 14. And this was sort of late 90s, early 2000s .com bubble. Worked for a company called AGFA. And he did hospital computers. And we did very well. It was boats and ski trips and Xbox and early Christmas presents. We grew up on a, small lake, big pond. And he had a motorcycle. My mom drove a BMW, that kind of thing. 14 years old, stepfather leaves, takes his entire extended family with him. Same year, sister moves out with her older boyfriend. Same year, my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, and we get kind of ostracized from that side of the family as well. And to this day, I've only seen 2 members of my mom's side of the family. And we don't really associate much with the McCorkles anymore because we're sort of the Lazaruses now. So kind of by the time I'm 14, I sort of lost 3 families. Yeah.
That's tough. It's a tough spot to be in.
So 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is the one I didn't know about. You become this sort of chameleon social coward, do anything to not lose anyone else, abandonment issue type stuff. So I definitely had that high level. But behind the scenes, it was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. I mean, it was just, I became this weird super achiever dude who just straight A's through all of high school, computer engineering degree, master's in business, off to the races in corporate, iRobots, Sensata Technologies, Lens Americas, all these different tech companies. I rose. I'm in my early 20s. I end up, I pay off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year because I was used to so little. When my stepdad left, he got the yacht in the apartment building. We got the house and the dog. I went from boats and ski trips to basically free lunch at school because our income is so low. My mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. And I don't know how I'm going to go to college because the college I want to go to is 50 grand a year. So I had to get all the scholarships and financial aid I could. So I went there, rose in corporate. I'm in my early 20s, paid off all my college debt in a single year, put all the rest of my money into an investment account for Vanguard, different tech companies and stocks and ETFs. And I was off to the races. I had 150 grand in an investment account. My expenses were low. I didn't have kids or a mortgage or anything like that. I lived on a lake with my girlfriend Courtney at the time, and my rent was $500. I drove a 2004 Volkswagen Passat, and I was just making tons and tons and tons of money in corporate. I worked for a company called Cognex that sells industrial automation equipment. I managed Western Mass, Vermont, and Connecticut for them as a sales engineer. Outside sales engineer was the title. That's when I get in my car accident. So I'm 26. I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin, second cousin, one of the only people that came back from my mom's side. Supposed to yield, didn't. Yield sign was covered by the snowbanks. End up on the wrong side of the road, head-on collision. Two things saved my life. Number one, my fault, by the way. Number one, thank you, Volkswagen. I used to call this car the tank. It was a German-engineered steel trap of a car, both airbags deployed. It did really well. I'm so grateful. Honestly, if I was in some little Honda Civic, I wouldn't be here. Second thing that saved my life, it wasn't a Mack truck. I thought it was. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck because when I saw the lights, I thought it was a Mack truck. So physically, we're okay. Both airbags deploy. We're physically okay. But my dad died in a car when he was 28. I'm 26 at the time, and this was my quarter-life existential crisis. This was, what was the point? What did it all mean? Did my life matter? Is my dad proud of me? Am I proud of me? Did I choose the right path? So this is when I went all in. So again, the 4 buckets that I mentioned in the beginning, I'll go brief with it. We all start out in life unsuccessful and unfulfilled. Unsuccessful externally, unfulfilled internally. I worked for a couple of friends of ours that I was at a golf course. I was a cart kid and a bus boy, and I was unsuccessful and I was deeply unfulfilled. I absolutely hated it. And I was treated pretty poorly there in hindsight. Then I became externally successful, computer engineer, master's in business, corporate, but internally I was unfulfilled still. Flip the script, car accident. Then I go to bucket 3, which now I'm externally unsuccessful. I liquidate all my assets. I start my own company, Alan Lazarus LLC, what you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know. I go all in on health and fitness and self-improvement, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, but I go broke. So now I'm externally unsuccessful, but I'm deeply fulfilled internally, meaningful life, meaningful work. Finally, in my 30s, now we have an 18-person team, 1,900 podcast episodes. We're heard in 175 countries now. We've got over 120 clients and next level university, essentially. But now I'm finally both successful externally and internally fulfilled. And ultimately, that's what I help people with is I'm a business coach. I have 26 people on my roster currently. A lot of them come to me and they're unfulfilled, but they're successful. Some come to me and they're unsuccessful, but they actually love their work and they just don't know how to scale and grow it. And it's actually really hard to do both. And so that's what I do now. It's very easy to be successful and it's easy to be fulfilled. It's very hard to do both. Very, very hard, because what's meaningful work for you is not often what the economy pays the most for. Sometimes it is, and you can do it, but it's got to be reverse engineered.
Right. And a lot of times that changes, right? You start off with that being your passion and you get in and you're like, yeah, it was kind of what I thought I was going to be my passion. And all of a sudden that changes. So I don't know that I've ever found the one thing that's going to make me feel, find something you love doing. You'll never work a day in your life. I've never felt that, no matter how far I've gone. I've loved doing some stuff with my life. I love having some of the companies I own, but I've never had that feeling where it's not work. Right? There's, to grow a business, to grow a company, always for me came with a bit of chewing glass.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good on a fortune cookie. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It sounds good on a fortune cookie, but in real life, yeah, this is what I would do. I'd reframe this. What is the meaningful work, underline work on that statement, that even when it's hard, you're still glad you did it? I think you don't know you love something because you always want to do it. You know you love something because you're always glad you did. And I think that is much more practical.
So say that again. So you say that one more time.
So if you love someone or something,
yes, you
don't necessarily always want to do it.
That's right.
You know you love someone or something when you're always glad you did.
I like that. That seems pretty fulfilling.
Right. So if you take out the trash for your wife or your husband, you don't always want to do it, but you're always glad you did because they're worth it. And I think that's what meaningful progress means. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I think that's right on. I think great point on that. Finding those things that are meaningful. Look, not growing a business or growing a company or growing yourself comes with work. It's not, it's like the gym stuff. I get up in the morning and 4 out of 5 days, Fred in my head's trying to talk me out of the gym, but I always feel great afterwards. Right? There's always
Fred in my head. I like that.
Yeah. He's a good one. So what's the significance of, self-improvement for you? What is that? What's the work you have behind all that?
So after 26, I realized in hindsight, pre 26, I was achievement oriented and I was improvement oriented and I was academically inclined. But it wasn't until after 26 that I went all in on self-improvement, personal growth, personal development. If you improve yourself, your life will improve as a byproduct. Whereas if you're chasing external goals, sometimes it can be at the expense of your fulfillment, at the expense of your core values, at the expense of your integrity. And so I flipped the script. And I think that self-improvement is, in hindsight, this is clear. I playfully refer to where I grew up as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. And the reason I do is because I am disappointed. There was no self-improvement in my childhood whatsoever. I mean, come on, right? So yeah, I'm disappointed. There was a lack of male role models and people that don't lead by example. And to me, self-improvement was the one thing I was always missing. It just didn't click. I was told to aim high, you'll have choices. I was told to do well in school. I was told that education is the way, and all of those things are true, but self-improvement is the way. You really want to be fulfilled in this life? This iPhone, I use this as a metaphor. This is the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I think the 16 is out now. 2007, Steve Jobs and Apple come out with the iPhone, the very first iPhone. I'm a senior in high school. It is a revolutionary breakthrough product. Do you know how hot garbage that phone would be compared to this? Wouldn't even be close. This is 1,000 times more capable. Regular iPhone, a revolutionary breakthrough product, would be hot garbage compared to this phone now. And so I'm going to be Allen version 3.6 in November, and Allen version 3.6 is going to be smarter, stronger, more capable, and more virtuous than Allen 3.5, than Allen 1.5. And to me, if you want your life to improve, you got to focus on working on yourself, improving your own hardware, improving your own software, improving your own firmware. Now, I'm a computer engineer, so I like the 3.6 thing, and then I'll be 3.7, and then 3.8, and then 4.0. But ultimately, everyone in high school doesn't know what they're doing. Some more than others, statistically speaking, but for the most part, Allen version 1.6 was kind of an idiot compared to Allen 3.6. And that's okay. So your life will only ever improve in the real world to the extent that you personally improve yourself. So that's why self-improvement matters, I think, so much.
Well, look, at an early age, I had no value to the world, right? I mean, literally, I was this bumbling young man that hadn't really figured out working hard or giving more than I take. I was really, fed from my mother's nipple, and as I become a little boy, look, I continue that kind of behavior. There wasn't much giving the world value. Really, as a young man, it was more taking, and slowly, as I evolve and start to realize that to give becomes a more valuable way of living, and I actually achieved more value in the way I lived, and the finances, and the women I could attract. Right, when women saw me as a young man, maybe there wasn't, my attraction was, other than I was utterly handsome. You couldn't stop that, but the man I become in the business world, the finances I'm able to create, there was something that became attractive about that. And the same thing as a society, as a friend, right? Being able to, really be there for my friends. There was something about being able to be a giver more than a taker as I grew, right? So some of that self-development involves being able to do hard things. One, to be able to do hard things, and then to do hard things and give to your community more than you take from the community.
I think all of us, they used to say there's go-getters and then there's go-givers, and I would say grow-giver is a good metaphor. You grow and then you give, and then you grow more and then you can give more, and then you grow more and then you give more. If you're a go-getter, you're just get. If you're a go-giver, you're a martyr, and I did that too. And you're just overly giving at the expense of yourself. And so a tree is a good metaphor. Again, it's simple, but it's powerful. It's the yin and the yang. The tree has to provide the fruit. The fruit falls and then feeds the soil, and then the tree is supposed to give more than it takes. That's how an ecosystem grows. That's how an economy grows. An ecosystem and an economy are from the same root, eco. And so ultimately, I do agree with you. And here's the thing. If you want to give more, the way I see it is we call it a GIP score, GIP, growth, impact, and profitability. So
like
GIP, grow yourself, use that better version of yourself to impact more people in a more meaningful way. And then when you impact people, make sure that you are profitable. And then when you're profitable, you can reinvest that back into your growth and back into your impact. And so that's kind of how it works. And I think the iPhone, I use it because everyone knows of it. But the first iPhone, they put the best engineers together to create the best product. Then they impacted people by selling it for a profit. And then they reinvested the profits into even better engineers and even better tools, even better hardware to then do the version 2 even better. And so I think that's really how businesses are supposed to work. That's how individuals are supposed to work. And I think what happens is when we expect huge rewards for minimal effort, it ruins everything.
Well, yeah, it never works. It's unfulfilling. You might get away with it for a minute or two, but ultimately your audience, the crowd, the people, everybody in your life, the people you work for, they figure it out. It's like, yeah, this guy doesn't have much value, or the women that you're with, or the love that you're with, in a great relationship, I've got to be able to give, right? It's not this like, well, if you give 50, I give 50. I'm going to get some, look, I've got to, if I really want to have a successful relationship or a successful business life, I've got to learn to give way more than I get.
100%. And you can't do that unless you grow.
Yeah, I love that growth. So let me ask you this: what do you think the biggest growth leverage item in your life has been? What's impacted the most from the growth stuff that you work on?
Ooh, habit tracking. A lot of things came up when you said that. My computer engineering brain does a lot, right? And books came up, this one course called Insane Productivity that I took, but habit tracking by far. So every one of my team members, 18 people, and then every one of my clients tracks metrics and habits. We call it peak performance tracking. And I think I have right now 7 metrics and I think 22 habits, but I started out in these little notebooks over here in the corner of my office, and I would, mechanical pencil, I would check off foam rolling and exercise and meditation, whatever it is. Habit tracking is a freaking game changer because it keeps you on track and you can customize it based on where you're headed. So my coaching is literally this: tell me your goals. I'll give you the metrics, habits, and skills necessary to achieve them. And then the identity work is the inner stuff, which is the courage to be who you really are and self-awareness and that kind of stuff. But ultimately, all goal achievement comes down to goals, metrics, habits, skills, and identity. And if you can align all those, you will achieve the goals. A lot of us don't achieve our goals because we don't understand ourselves, or we aren't tracking the right metrics and habits, or we don't have the skills necessary to do it. I liken it to, we have a Model Y Tesla. It's kind of self-driving, supervisor mode. It pretty much drives itself. But I always think to myself, okay, if the Tesla thinks that there's a truck on the right, it's going to go left. If it thinks there's a road to the right and there's actually a cliff, it's going to keep driving off a cliff and then blaming the world. I think that one of the reasons people don't achieve their goals is because they have inaccurate thinking. That's the main reason. You either think something about yourself that's not true, think something about other people that's not true, or you think something about the world that's not true. So there's 3 things we all have to understand at the deepest level if we want to achieve our goals and dreams. That's a big if. Number 1, you have to understand yourself. Every Tesla needs an accurate current location. Number 2 is you need an accurate destination location. That's the goal. Number 3 is you need accurate terrain. You need accurate data of the terrain. Remember the old Garmin's that didn't have updated data and it's like a new road and you get lost? That's what I feel like happens to most people. So you need to think accurately about yourself, others, and the world, how it works and why it works that way. I know some people who know themselves really well. They've been doing therapy since they were 12. I know some people who, but they don't know the economy. They don't know global. They don't understand how government, business to business, business to consumer. They don't know science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance. They don't know how the external world works. I was the opposite. I understood the external world. I walk into a Panera and I'm seeing their P&L in my head, but I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand my trauma. I didn't understand my childhood. I didn't understand the abandonment issues. So I needed a therapist. I always joke. I say, if you want a coach, you need a therapist. That was me. If you want a therapist, you probably need a coach. And the idea, a lot of us are either good at one or the other. We're either professionally developed or personally developed. We're either, good at science, technology, and metrics and habits, or we're good with people. It's very rarely both. But in the 21st century, you got to be good. It's the and. You have to be empathetic and hardcore. Right. You have to be hardworking and get R&R.
We're certainly having the language we have today compared to what my parents had, or even their parents had, is dramatically different. You can definitely see how the world has created language and are starting to see things way differently than ever before. Look, for thousands of years, philosophers and Stoics have had these ideas, and we continue to have these human breakthroughs and start to look at, all right, what are some things that are holding people back? Look, if ultimately we're designed to survive, right? Why not survive well? And what's the holdback? Alan, what's the holdback that's keeping us from going there?
Self-belief is number one. And number two is self-worth. So self-belief is, I know I can build the castle. Yeah. That's ultimately what we all want. So I had high self-belief. Self-belief is about external achievement. It's about competence, external confidence. It's I can build the castle. Self-worth is I'm going to live in the castle and I'm going to protect and honor it, and I'm not going to let my friends spill beer all over the carpets. Right? So I was the martyr. It's like external achievement all day, that kind of thing. Tons of self-belief, but low self-worth. So I was a coward socially, but I was very courageous competence-wise. Some people are the opposite. I think the larger percentage of the population is the opposite. I think some people have inflated self-worth, fake inflated self-worth. I always say this, why would, because a lot of people mistake self-worth for self-confidence. So everyone think of someone who thinks the world of themselves, almost to the point where it's like, where do you get the confidence? Why would someone with level 10 self-belief have level 2 goals? It's not real. It's all ego. It's inflated entitlement. And unfortunately, for anyone who grew up with a caregiver who was inflated ego, entitled, and deeply insecure, but pretending not to be, usually there's an overcorrection. And so there's something in psychology called self-efficacy. It's kind of like self-belief. It's state, prove, self-assign. So I'm going to get straight A's in high school, prove that you can do it, and then self-assign it once you do it. I did that. Holy crap. What else can I do? That's building real self-belief. Self-worth is social. Self-worth is what's my value as a person. And so a lot of people have high self-belief but low self-worth. And other people have inflated self-worth. They think the world owes them something because they're awesome and they were so good in high school, right? And I'm being playful, but that's the truth. All of us want accurate self-belief and accurate self-worth. And I think that's what humility actually is. I think humility is an accurate assessment of your own importance. I think it's an accurate assessment of your own capabilities. You don't deflate or inflate or omit. You just are who you are. And that takes a lot of social courage. So I'm awesome at science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance, but I didn't understand relationships. It was such a struggle for me. I own both the good and the bad. That, I think, is real humility. And so the reason why we don't succeed is we lack, usually a lot of people, most of the percentage of the population statistically lacks self-belief. Real internal self-belief, subconscious and unconscious self-belief. 96% of the population, I read this, and this was in January of 2024. We do monthly meetups every single month. And I researched for it. It was setting clear goals for 2024. And I researched it, and it said only 4% of people have written goals and only 8% of them ever achieve them. And my brain broke because I've always had written goals and I've always achieved them. Not all of them, but most of them. So for me, I can't imagine why that would be. The truth is, most people don't believe in themselves. And if you don't believe in yourself, why would you have goals? You'd much rather just drift around. And the truth is, most people are drifting around. That's why they're stumbling upon jobs and stumbling upon careers and stumbling upon, that's why relationship building is so important. That's why they say networking is your net worth, because a lot of people aren't actually doing the reverse engineering of the finish line in advance in the real world. A lot of them are relationship building their way to the top. And I'm not making that wrong. What I am saying is that there's a self-belief and self-worth piece here. And this is why we see a lot of really successful people that aren't in shape, because they don't actually have a ton of self-belief, and it takes tons of self-belief. Remember, being in shape is you against you.
Yeah,
You can't network your way to being in shape, right? Yeah. So it takes self-efficacy to be fit. And that's why it's so hard to do.
Yeah, some self-love and some, absolutely. Yep. You know, I think that's an interesting topic you brought up. The part about the difficulty around believing in yourself, and that's why a lot of businesses that I work with, or even when we go through troubles financially at some of the companies I own, I'll go back and look at when we don't do our budgets and forecasts. We don't look at our matrix. We sit down. My real belief is that we don't believe in ourselves, right? We don't believe we can do it. And that's why we want to hide. We want to hide from the truth. We don't want to go look at the data, right? What's the real data about what's going on with where you're at, and facing that real data, right? No, don't lie to yourself. Look, you're not doing what you think you're doing, or maybe you are doing it. And don't beat yourself up. Some days you need to give yourself some praise. So I think that both are true. When I watch, when we make these goals or don't make goals, or we don't make budgets, we don't make forecasts, or we were talking about with personal goals and development, like you don't believe you'll ever get there.
Well, I think if they're too large in too short amount of time, you'll think you'll never get there. You won't believe in it. It'll create too much uncertainty, and then you'll avoid it. And if they're too small, they're not going to ignite you and excite you. So goal setting is a science. You have to get it to the optimal level. If you're, Michael Jordan, and your goal is 10 points a game, that's not going to excite him. That's but right. For a bench player, if your goal is 50 points a game, you're screwed. Yeah. You're going to let yourself down 1,000 times, right? So the truth is we don't set goals because we don't believe in ourselves. And if we do set goals, we set the wrong size goals that either don't ignite us, or they're too astronomical, too big, to where we can't even start small and build. And I think that real self-belief starts with small and then builds bigger and bigger and bigger. If you have level 2 self-belief, set a level 2 goal and hit it, and then you'll build level 3 self-belief. Then you set a level 3 goal and hit it, and that's why Next Level You is, pun intended, Next Level University, Next Level You. Allen version 3.6 is setting different size goals because I'm more smart and more capable than I used to be. So the goals that excite and ignite me are different than when I was 16.
That's right. Finding the next version of me is the fun in the achievement. And now we don't believe that. I don't believe most of us believe that. I think most of us think that, stepping into the next me, stepping in that place where I'm going to feel foolish, stepping into the, I don't have this all figured out yet, isn't something we're taught. At least I wasn't. No one told me that it's okay to, try something and mess up. It wasn't that way. I think people actually, made fun of us or made fun of me. And so there wasn't a time where stepping into that uncomfortable growth edge that you're going to go on that ultimately has you feel a little stupid at the time. It wasn't a trained behavior to notice that, okay, good. You feel a little stupid here. Great. Yes. It's actually a great spot to be in because now you're growing.
Mm-hmm. There's your report card, right? Yeah. So some people are afraid of success. Some people are afraid of failure. If you are afraid to be a failure, the reason why is our peer group. We want to be not seen as a failure by our peers, but we don't want to be so successful that we get ostracized. So some people are actually deflating their true value because they're so competent and so capable that they don't want to be abandoned. And some people are actually so scared to be found out because they know deep down they're not actually that smart or that capable. And the truth is, it's vulnerable to be who you really are. We are all afraid we're either not enough or that we're too much. And we all have to be courageous and vulnerable to be who we really are. Like, it's taken a lot from me not to inflate or deflate on this episode. A lot of people think I was inflating. No, I'm actually dialing it down half the time. Right? But they don't know that because they would inflate. So, and that depends on your core wound, and that's a whole psychological rabbit hole we can't get into because
the core wounds are, I think, a big part of what the problems we're trying to solve, right? That overinflation is trying to hide that core wound.
Yep.
Right. There's this one of me that wants to hide the big thorn sticking out of me. So I do it by overdoing it. And I believe one of the reasons why I become an entrepreneur, or most entrepreneurs become an entrepreneur, we're hiding that big thorn that's sticking out of the side of us, and it's a great defense mechanism. As long as you're looking at my business, not me, it takes that pressure off, and or we're trying to prove to the world, hey, I'm not stupid, I'm valuable. Here's my value by the business I do. I think both are correct, and I think ultimately we are all creators. So there is a gift in creating, taking ideas that don't exist and bringing them into the physical world by being a great entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the entrepreneurial journey, if you're doing it right, I think as you mature and get older and you start to achieve your goals and dreams, you realize that all you ever really wanted was self-belief and self-worth. Mm-hmm. And in order to achieve your goals and dreams, if they are true goals and dreams, not ego goals and dreams, it's going to require courage and vulnerability and humility and self-belief and self-worth. And that's the real reason. It's going to if they're goals and dreams that aren't built on shiny objects and social status, they're going to require you to face your deepest fears and become more virtuous. And I think that's what we all really want. I think we all want to reach our potential. I do. I think we all want to reach our potential. Yeah. And if you do reach your potential, the byproduct of that, I think, is fulfillment, as long as you're doing it for a cause that's greater than yourself. And that's why I'm here right now. I mean, this is free, right? That's why I'm here right now, is just I'm going to be a better speaker because of this. I'm going to help more people because of this. You're here inspiring people, Future Factory. I'm all for it. So I'm grateful.
It's awesome. I got to say, Alan, you are a bright light on this world. You are a gift to the people out there, and the work that you're doing is phenomenal. I loved having you on the show. It's one of those places where I love the bright light that you are. As people want to do more work and they're looking for a coach or looking for someone to work with, how do they get a hold of you?
All right. So first of all, thank you. Like I said, I start with gratitude. I want to end with gratitude. Thank you for the compliments. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for having me. Thank you for helping me share my light. Regarding where you can find me, we have a podcast that you mentioned, Next Level University, spelt just like it sounds. We have a website called nextleveluniverse.com, spelled just like it sounds. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I just got Instagram Threads like 2 days ago, so I'm not sure about that one yet. Yeah, there you go. But if you Google my name, I will come up. All of that will come up, and I really hope you reach out. And if you do DM me, please just provide context, because obviously we all get a lot of spam.
Yeah, listen, I'll make sure all that's down below. Our team will put all that great stuff down there. And folks, please reach out to Alan. He is, even off camera, he's the same way. He brings it. He's got a great vision. It can see through and really help move the needle in your life. If you're looking for a great coach, a great person to be around, and a great podcast to listen to, you got to pick him up. I'll have all that down below in the description.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it. And thank you to your team as well, who we did the pre-chat with. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your grace with me being late today. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
Alan, was great. Hey, audience members, last week we had an amazing 36,000 downloads. I was like, oh my God, you get here. I got goosebumps. It really blew me away. But I noticed that a lot of you guys had gotten to the end of the podcast, and some of you were not subscribers. If you could take a second and like and subscribe, do that now. It means the world to Alyssa and Joe and all the people in the background that find us amazing guests like Alan. And the numbers do make a difference by the guests we can get. So if you could do that for us now, I'd be grateful. And Alan, thank you very much for being on.
Anthony, thank you for having me. And thank you to your whole team that makes all this stuff happen too.
All right. Awesome. Thanks a lot. And audience, thanks for listening.